take a beating. Okay, speaking of that, taking a beating. I said last week that I was going to tell the story today about when, I went for a ride and I didn't think that I was coming back. All right. So I promised I'd tell it, so here it is. Back then I had this buddy, and he was a regular. He was really sketchy. He was into everything, but he was a buddy of mine, and I mean, we were tight, we were loyal, and he knew all sorts of people, and he did his thing and I did my thing. But we'd hang out, and he was crashing at this apartment that belonged to the girlfriend of this one dude. While she would be away, he would get to hang out and crash there. And I would go and I would hang out there with him too, and it was never a problem or anything. And we ended up the one weekend throwing a pretty damn good shaker of a party. And what he never told me was who this boyfriend person was, who he wasn't completely up on it either. But let's just say that he was a member of the 3-patch variety. If you catch my drift. And we were sitting there partying. And a whole bunch of people are friends of ours, our age and everything. When like half a dozen of these guys come bursting into the apartment, tossing everybody around, taking the money they had on them, whatever else they had, their booze, any drugs they might have had, tossing them out, getting rid of them. It was, grab my buddy and threw him down and just start telling him that he's a dead man and all the nonsense that's going on. And they're just ransacking everybody. And I'm just sitting there on the couch watching this. And I was, pretty stoned, but I was with it. And they're sitting there and I'm watching this. And then they come up and they tell me to get out. I got to get out too. And I looked at him and said, I never bail on my friends. And all they said was, your choice. And they proceeded to lay one of the worst beatings I had ever seen in my life on my buddy. And then they came and he did it to me too. And then they dragged us outside, went down, and they had a van there, and a couple of them tossed us in the van. And we're going for a drive. We're talking just the regular old dirty van, no seats in the back, no nothing, them riding up front. And I'm just like, son of a bitch, beat the hell. I'm in a lot of pain. He's freaking out. And I'm thinking, oh, man, we're done for. This is it. And the passenger is doing something up front, and he leans back and he hands me a fucking big joint. And I'm like, damn. And he's like, you're going to need this. So he starts smoking it. And I'm thinking, one last smoke. This is the end of it. And we go pulling up into a parking lot by a hotel. And then they hand me some paper towel and tell us to clean our faces. And they took us into the restaurant and sat us down to have a meal with us and started to explain the new rules of how things are going to be. And that he could still hang out at that place. But nobody was ever allowed in there, ever in there but him. Except now, I could be in there. I wasn't allowed before, but then they said, you can be in there too. And they purposely said I was now responsible for anything my idiot friend did. That I was responsible to make sure that he didn't screw up again. And all I could think was, I'm walking out of here. And I'm like, son of a bitch. And when it was done, we got up, they paid, they walked out, they got in the van and they left. And they just left us at this hotel and a restaurant at a town outside the city that we were in, having to make our way back. And we made our way back, and we made our way back to the apartment, and it was pretty unnerving. I mean, For the next while, I thought absolutely for sure they were going to snag me up again at one point, that it was a done deal. You know, I was pretty sure that was the end of it. And after that, I mean, things get rolling in your life and in your world, and at some point you got to make a decision. And I made a decision. And the decision in the end I made when I was like 24 is I walked away from everyone and everything I knew and never had contact with any of them again for years, in order to separate myself. Because, man, I don't think things would have been much longer. You only get one ride like that ever. And the fact that they got a ride like that and survived, it was, oh man, it was nasty. No, I didn't become a recluse. I entirely moved away. Completely. You know, but it was crazy. The only difference is I've seen some of them same people over the years move back. I'm there. But it was because when I left and I cut bait and I cut 100% and never hid where I was going or from anybody. You know, you can make a break, but yeah, I didn't think I was coming back from that ride. Yeah, it wasn't a fun night, I tell you. I am not ashamed to admit that I was quite on edge for at least a week after that. It was every time someone walked near me, behind me, on the same sidewalk as me, you know. It was crazy. But yeah, you have to make a choice. And I knew where things were going to go, you know, because that incident happened, and then I still, you know, lived my life the way it was for a couple of years, and I had to make a choice.